welcome back to this week's episode of Outside the Arena. I'm Griffin Senek alongside my co-host Devin Bernstein, and it's finally that time of the year, March Madness, kicking off today. We're filming this the night before, but you'll be seeing this early tomorrow morning. And I mean, the best weekend of the year, Thursday through Sunday of this week, when you've just got a gazillion games each day. What is it? It's probably 16, 16, 8 and 8, I think is how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
just beautiful. I mean, nothing better, especially those first 2 days. I mean, it's just truly remarkable. But we're gonna do a little breakdown here before the tournament, kind of go through region by region, give our thoughts on kind of who we like, maybe some sleeper teams. Obviously, last season we had Princeton make it really far. I think they were the highest seed that went pretty far last year. But also last year was crazy. I mean, you had San Diego State, FAU, U Miami in the Final Four. I mean, last year was total insanity. I don't know why Princeton was the only one that came to mind for me when last year was crazy. But yeah, we're just gonna break things down and we're gonna start off in the East. That's where the defending champ UConn Huskies are. Other notable teams in there, you've got FAU taking on my Northwestern Wildcats. San Diego State is the 5 seed there. Auburn the 4, BYU the 6, Illinois the 3, Washington State 7, Iowa State 2. Iowa State, I believe they won the Big 12. So you've got 3 conference champions in there, at least. Well, out of the Power Fives, I guess you've got 3 conference champions. Or I guess
Uh,
UConn's not a Power Five. I'm all over the place.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, but the Big East is a good conference as
yeah,
well. Like this is a stacked region.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you for jumping in, Dev. Um, yeah, I mean, give me your kind of initial thoughts. Obviously, I think UConn, I was just looking at it, they are the favorites to repeat. That's, they've got the most picks to win it all, rightfully so. They've had a great year. But really a lot of talent in this East region.
Yeah, I mean, the East region is I mean, a ton of big conference champions. A ton of teams that grade out super well with a lot of the metrics that, in with, past indicators, in terms of being, certain threshold in offensive and defensive efficiency, stuff like that. But there's some certain things that I guess you could quantify with some stats, but that are really important in March. The first one is just like neutral court. Like neutral court's a big thing because of how big home court is in college. Like, it's a thing in every sport, and basketball, more so than most, but in college basketball, it is unlike any other. Like Syracuse, you know, when they played at home, it was like, oh, like this is like clearly like one of the 30 or 40 most talented teams in the country. Like clearly this team should be getting in. And then on the road, it's like, oh my, like what am I watching? Like and that's not just the case for Syracuse. Like this feels like the case like most of these teams are like, even like the good tournament teams are like 7-8 on the road and like
Yeah.
13-2 at home or something like that. It's like, how is that possible? Um, so that's just something that's very interesting because the biggest advantage in any college game is the home court advantage. So all these games being at a neutral court is a really big thing. Um, and then obviously this is kind of cliche, but I feel like college basketball is the sport where all the cliches are actually kind of true.
Mhm.
Um, so one of them is the guard play and like the big shot making, but it really does matter like to have a guy that you can go to in the clutch. You know, like ultimately, like it's hard to, create easy shots consistently at the end of games in any basketball game, but especially in the college game. Um, and you just need someone who can make and take tough shots, not scared of the moment. It's very true. And like, I guess that would kind of be my concern with UConn is it's like, who's their one guy that it's like, we're going to go to. Usually you want it to be a guy that has some ball handling ability, um, to create their own shot as opposed to a big guy, but obviously it can work either way. Then there's also you know, just kind of who's getting hot and how they did in the conference tournaments, which is why I think a team like Illinois is really dangerous, even if their defense has struggled a lot. But this region, I think I honestly think I could see 1 through 6 with maybe the exception of San Diego State, although they made it to the Final Four last year. So no, oh no, yeah, Final Four. Um, yeah, they lost to Florida.
They were in the championship. They were in the
They were in
championship.
the championship. Okay, okay. I was losing it a little bit there. Um, but yeah, so nothing tells me that they can't make it back. But obviously, UConn, Auburn, Illinois, Iowa State, I think all have a chance. And I do like BYU quite a bit as a sleeper team. Haven't seen them play a ton, but have good guards, have good shot creation, good defense, and like metrics wise, they grade out as like one of the 10 or 15 best teams in the country, which is not what you would expect from, a 6 seed. But playing in the Big 12 is a big thing to me. Like if you're able to just go 500 in the Big 12, it's so impressive, or
Yeah.
anything above that. This is such a competitive conference. So I don't think, like Big 12 teams are like, just in a league of their own. I just think the competition is unlike any other. It's a bit smaller in terms of the amount of teams. And obviously they recently added Houston, who is a 1 seed. So like this is just a stacked conference, obviously. So I do think BYU has a chance. Ultimately, my pick here was Auburn.
Wow.
Um, they're another team that grades out incredibly well with the metrics. They're very hot right now. This is a team very reminiscent of their team in 2019 when they made the Final Four. They have a great two-way star in Janai Broom. I think it's Janai. I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so I'm really high on this Auburn team. Um, I think, you know, I do think Duquesne, for what it's worth, was a bit overseeded. Like, they were not a team that was projected to make the tournament at all, and they kind of just won the Atlantic 10, and they sort of just got an 11 seed, which was the seed they gave to all the teams that weren't expected to win a conference tournament that won. But
Yeah.
it just felt like they were much worse based on the eye test than, a North Carolina State or an Oregon. So I felt that was a bit weird. Yeah, I mean, I think BYU has a pretty good chance of winning that one. Um, but yeah, this is a loaded region. I'm very excited to see what happens here. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously think it starts with, UConn. And for me, one of the biggest pieces that they have this year is Cam Spencer. He's a guy that I got to watch play at Rutgers last year. He played Northwestern twice, and this kid can shoot. I mean, he's shooting 44% from three this year, averaging 14 and a half points, and he's a good defender as well. Kind of does a little of everything. And I think, he's really a piece for them that I think can make a difference. Obviously, you've got guys like Donovan Clingan, Tristan Newton that have been there and are elite players, but I think Cam Spencer really rounds it out as, a great third piece there. I thought that was a great move that they made this offseason. UConn's got 5 scores and double figures. I mean, this is just a well-rounded team, great offense. Like we talked about the Big East, I mean, what a grind. And obviously the committee, or whatever it is. I don't know
They
how
call it the
falls.
committee too, which I was thinking about. It's kind of interesting that they're
Yeah.
both
Only
sports.
3 Big East teams, which, there was a lot of uproar about, especially when you've got teams like, Virginia the other day got in and one of the more embarrassing performances I think I've ever seen. Um, but you had left out Seton Hall, you left out St. John's, who got really hot late. They also left out Providence, so kind of questionable. But the Big East, a very good conference. You've also got Marquette from there and Creighton, so 3 of the top 10 teams in the country in the Big East. So UConn, I think it starts and ends with them. But for me, if another team is going to do it, it's Illinois. And I think Illinois is so freaking good. I mean, again, obviously, I've watched more of the Big Ten than any other conference. Um, Terrence Shannon, regardless of what I think of him as a person, he's one of the best players in the country. He's a machine. We saw it in the Big Ten tournament. He scored 40 points. I think he scored 40 against Nebraska, or was it in the finals that he scored
It
40?
was Nebraska, I believe.
Nebraska, yeah. Just an absolute beast. And Marcus Damask, I mean, this kid they got as a transfer, this guy is a bucket. I mean, only somehow not really a three-point shooter, kind of a mid-range guy. Kind of, it's different, but like a DeMar DeRozan type situation where it's like guy's not really great from three, but like the mid-range, he's just money. And
Yeah.
they've also got guys like Coleman Hawkins, Quincy Guerrier, Luke Goody's a good three-point shooter. I just think they kind of have it all, like you mentioned. Defensively, probably not the best team, but offensively they can fly. And looking at where they are playing Morehead State, then playing the winner of BYU and what how do you pronounce it?
Duquesne.
Duquesne, okay. Who I don't hate. I think they got an easier side. I guess Iowa State is a really good team, but I think Illinois is a team to watch. I gotta shout out my Northwestern Wildcats, man. Boo Buie, I think is arguably the first or second best player in this entire wing. I mean, it's probably him or Terrence Shannon, in my opinion, as probably the top two guys. I know that could be controversial, but I mean, this guy's just a machine. He's shooting about 45% from three on the season, averaging 19 points, over 5 assists. And, the Northwestern's banged up. Ty Barry Matnup isn't out for the season, but I really do believe if those guys were there, they would have the makings of a team with the run. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. Defensively, at full health would have been good, but still, Nick Martinelli stepped up. Definitely some questions at the center position, and I think with their current health, if they do beat FAU, that they will very much struggle with UConn. But had to shout them out. And then my sleeper in this side of things is Drake, the Drake Bulldogs. I really think they could definitely win against Washington State and maybe even beat Iowa State. This team really good at shooting the basketball. They were 28-6 on the season. They got Tucker DeVries. I don't know. I'm going with that.
Oh, hold on, let me cut you off here. Guess his dad's last name. Sorry, nope, said that completely wrong. His dad's the coach, is what I'm meaning to say.
Okay.
Which happens to be the case with about 90% of college teams, as they somehow have a son on the team.
Yes.
Um, but this guy's really good, actually, and
Yeah.
I just could so see that being like the classic, like, father son,
It's
like,
like Buddy Boeheim a few years ago.
yeah. I mean, every few years there's one of these stories. Yeah, I mean, I could so see it happening, and he's actually really good, and Drake is really good as well, like you said.
Yeah, Tucker's averaging 22 points, almost 7 rebounds, 1.6 steals a game. And they also just got a lot of shooters on their team. Aiden Wright, another one of their good players, averaging 41% from three. Connor Enright, 44% from three. They shoot 37%, and free throws, 76%. And that's one thing also I want to say is free throw shooting, is
Huge.
probably the most important thing in March Madness. I mean, it is life and death. All these games get so close. The adrenaline's just so high, and you need teams that can make free throws, and just people who have been there before. I think Drake has been to the tournament recently, maybe last year, maybe
They
I'm wrong.
lost to Miami last year, I believe.
Right, that's what I thought. So, they've had some experience. I think that comes into play. I don't believe Washington State has made the tournament recently. So
I don't think
that
so.
comes into play. I like Drake as a kind of underdog 10 seed. The Ivy, you got Yale in here. Obviously you saw what Princeton did last year. A conference that does tend to give teams some trouble. So that's what I would say. Yeah, if I'm picking a winner, I'm probably going UConn, but I really think Illinois and them, it would be a great game. And I think Illinois is going to make it pretty far. I think they are absolutely built for it and are one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, I mean, Illinois is the type of team that's burned me a ton in the past. Like
Yeah,
the team that's hot has a great like scorer like Shannon, and then they kind of just like their defense falls apart, something like that. So
very fair.
I do like them a lot based on my eye test, but I just can't get burned by a team like that again.
Yeah.
So I'm staying away. Which you want to do the West next?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we talked about how strong the other region was, the East, and I think this one is a little bit different. I wouldn't say it's weak, but North Carolina, again, I hate to be the conference how good the conference is guy, but to me, North Carolina, very good team, but dominating the ACC and for Arizona, the Pac-12, even more so, I would say, just isn't super impressive to me. It doesn't mean these teams aren't really good. I don't think there's anything you could say that like RJ Davis and Armando Bacot. That's a very very good 1-2 punch. Like there that would I would not be shocked at all if they went on to make a super deep run. Same thing goes with Arizona. They have a ton of talent. I think for 1 and 2 seeds they might be a little bit on the less trustworthy side at least. So I could see this being a bit of a chaos region.
Yeah,
Um, 8-9 matchup, Mississippi State, Michigan State. I think both those teams are semi-dangerous. Michigan State always seems to like make a run at some point. St. Mary's is the classic like plays ugly team, but you just feel like they're gonna like win a game or two
yeah,
somehow. Um, Alabama Charleston is a fascinating matchup to me because both of those teams play like extremely fast, shoot a ton of threes, so that could be a shootout. Could really go either way just because both of those teams play the same way, so that'll be interesting. Um, I do think St. Mary's matches up well against Alabama and Charleston in the next round if they make it there, just because they're good at kind of killing that fast-paced style and they can kind of just smother you defensively. And then the bottom of the bracket is just as open to me. I do think Clemson is slightly overseeded. I've seen them play a lot this year. I think they're gonna struggle with the size and the athleticism of guards in the tournament, specifically with their first round matchup against New Mexico, um, who just won the Mountain West, which I think is a pretty solid conference. Baylor, I mean, their record and in pedigree and coaching would suggest that they're, you know, similar to the Baylor teams we've seen in the past, but I just feel like there's a little bit missing with this Baylor team. Colgate always seems to make the tournament, so maybe this is the year they kind of break through. Um, and then this bottom part, like I have no idea who's gonna make it to the Sweet 16 here. Like Dayton, Nevada, I feel like is a toss up. I do think Arizona does beat Long Beach State, but I think both of those teams, Nevada and Dayton, match up really well with Arizona. Um, so when I've been filling out my brackets, I've just been struggling to pick anyone out of this region. Um, like I said, I do have New Mexico as a sleeper team here. Um, I think their path is very doable. And then the top side of the bracket, I would favor North Carolina, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Michigan State or a St. Mary's or an Alabama make a run. This is the bracket I'm the most unsure of, honestly. Feel like there's like 8 or 9 teams that could somehow make it out of here.
yeah, definitely. I think I think you said it pretty well. Like, it's just a lot of teams that it's just like, I don't know. Like, I mean, North Carolina, like you said, great team. They got the star power, the experience, which I think will come into play. And I think they've got a really clear path to the Sweet 16, at least. Mississippi State and Michigan State, two teams that Northwestern's played. Um, Michigan State's just like so weird because
They're
their
weird.
net is so high, but like they're just not that good. And like Tyson Walker's like a pretty solid good player. And you've got guys like Hogard and um, oh, I'm forgetting the big man's name, but he's
Polar.
Cole, maybe. Is
Oh,
it?
Hall, yeah.
Yeah. He's a really good player. I just don't think this is a team that wins more than a game in the tournament. I don't even think they really deserve to necessarily be there in the first place. Mississippi State, just kind of a mediocre team. St. Mary's kind of like you said, just like a scrappy, but like they just don't really have that juice to make a run. I think Bama, you get interesting just because that offensive firepower is like crazy. And I think that's what you get with the SEC. Like the SEC is so offense heavy and just you do not have much defense there. I mean, you have really good teams. Obviously, Tennessee is pretty solid defensively, but some of these SEC teams, I'm trying to think if there was one other SEC team. I mean, South Carolina's had a great year. Um,
Kentucky.
Kentucky, yeah, like just offense, offense, and more offense with these SEC teams. And Alabama's probably the pinnacle of that. They're not good defensively, but you got Mark Sears there, who's a great player. I like you said, Charleston's an interesting team. They run, I think, like a 10-man lineup and just like really rotated, shoot a lot of threes. So like that's kind of a team that you feel like in the tournament gets hot. You get a bunch of random guys. Like you said, Clemson, like I'm really just not moved by them whatsoever. I just don't really think they got anything special. I think New Mexico, like you said, is probably one of my big upset picks. Baylor, I just think with them, what's missing is just like that star. Like I just don't think they have that like true star that they've had in past years. Going back to some of these teams they've had. I mean, they've had who are the guys they've had? They had was Jeremy Sochan, he was Baylor, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they had Davion Mitchell,
Davion
Jared
Mitchell.
Butler was a really good college player. Yeah, no, they've definitely had more star power than they have this
Yeah,
year.
definitely. And like they're a solid team. Like we talked about the Big 12, really good. I mean, they have wins over I was looking at their schedule. Let me see if I can pull it up again. Yeah, they have wins over teams like Oklahoma, who's a good team, Texas Tech, Iowa State, BYU, Florida is a tournament team, Kansas, Texas. Like they've beaten a lot of tournament teams. Like they are a good team. Um, can they put together a run? We'll have to see. I do think that they're in a good spot though to go to the Sweet 16. I think Colgate is just one of those teams that always makes it, like you said, never wins the game though. And Clemson, New Mexico State, I don't think really either of those teams are can pose much of a threat. So I think Baylor's in a good spot. Um, Dayton's an interesting team. You've got De'Aaron Holmes, who, one of the better players in the country. Nate Santos, transfer from Pitt, has been really great for them. Great 3-point shooter. Kobe Bria, one of their guards, shoots almost 50% from three. So they've got a lot of really talented shooters on that team, which I think, makes, is the makeup of a team that can go deep. They've just kind of struggled down the stretch. They lost to Duquesne's, is that what we're saying? Duquesne.
Duquesne.
Duquesne, okay. They lost to Duquesne, they lost to Loyola, which was a big game recently. So they kind of faltered a little down the stretch, but Holmes is such a good player, you could probably lead them. And Arizona, obviously Caleb Love is kind of, I don't want to say a resurgence, but I feel like, he's kind of gotten that opportunity to be the real star on his team. And
Also, of course, they put North Carolina
oh
and
yeah, they're
Arizona in the
setting that
same
up.
region.
That would be awesome. I think that would be so fun. Obviously they both have to get to the Elite Eight for that, but yeah, I think Arizona, it's just to me, it's the same stuff with Arizona. It's like, yeah, they're good, but like, is this team gonna go all the way? Like, probably not, but maybe. Like, I think Caleb Love is a really good player. Balo is a really good, big man as well. Averages over 10, averages a double double, which college is so huge. So I don't know. We'll see. I agree. This side of the bracket's kind of a little weird. And North Carolina isn't really super strong to where it's like if you had any of the three other one seeds in this bracket, I would say they would have a straight path to the Final Four pretty much, which I don't think is the case because I don't think UNC is on that level as we saw, them falling to NC State in the ACC final. So yeah, that's kind of what I got with that one. If you want to move along to whichever out of the South and Midwest you would like to take us to.
Yeah, let's do the South. Yeah, I mean, Houston's obviously really good. Like, yeah, that they just seem to be the same team every year, but they're good enough offensively to me to where I don't think they need to give up less than 65 points, or if they run into a team that makes 50% of their threes, they're absolutely screwed. I don't think that's quite the case with them. I do think they have enough shot making talent, uh, etc. To kind of figure that out. I'm really fascinated by this Nebraska A&M game. Two teams
Yeah.
hot going into the tournament. Nebraska, they have the Japanese Steph Curry as
Tominaga, yeah.
involved. Yeah, Keisei Tominaga. Yeah, he's actually really good as well. Um, so yeah, and Texas A&M got really hot since I think it was like they started a new point guard or something like that. Their offense has really taken off, which had kind of been their issue. I believe they're like the worst 3-point shooting team in the country though,
Mhm.
which doesn't seem to bode super well in my eyes. James Madison's pretty good. Wisconsin, I'd like to hear your thoughts on, but I think they look pretty good as well. Uh, Duke, yeah, I'm such a big ACC hater as someone who goes to an ACC school, but I really don't think Duke is very good. They just, I don't know. I guess I don't like them as well, but Filipowski just doesn't seem to like. I don't know. I think they're a good team. There just is something about them. I guess the coaching isn't maybe the top tier. The depth isn't great.
Yeah,
Like there's nothing about them talent wise that they shouldn't be able to make a run, and maybe that's what I'm missing here. But maybe they kind of click it in place. But I've yet to see them really do that, and I think they kind of just got by on talent against again a weaker ACC schedule. But it's going to be hard to do that. I think Vermont's a pretty solid team for a 13 seed, so I don't think it's a cakewalk. I mean, not that any game really is in March, but I really don't think that one is either. NC State fascinates me because they kind of just looked incredible, won 5 straight games in 5 days, which is like ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, nothing would shock me about them. Kentucky, very similar to Alabama. They probably have slightly more talent, especially like pro talent. Yeah, they're loaded too. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they make a run, but again, they could just not do anything defensively. Florida, like, I don't get the vibes that Florida is actually such an offensive oriented team, at least not as much as Alabama and Kentucky. I just think when they play those teams, it ends up like that. But they're also a team that's kind of reliant on their offense and shooting. Um, is the yeah, the Boise Colorado game is going on right now.
yep.
But I like Colorado. I think they have a ton of talent. I kind of think they got robbed being in the play-in here. I think they could definitely make a run of any of the Pac-12 teams. Um, and then Marquette. I love Marquette. I think their top three is about as good as anyone in the country's. And I is a big thing with college basketball. There aren't a lot of teams anymore that are like 9 or 10 deep of really good players. So obviously guys like 4 through 7 do matter a lot, but if you have three of the best, 40, 50 players in the country, I think that's a huge advantage. And the health is a question mark with Tyler Kolek, but I think if he's healthy, there's really nothing stopping this team. They're my pick out of this region. I do think there are a lot of threats. I could see NC State making a run. Obviously, Houston has a good a chance as any. I would almost be shocked if they don't make it to the Elite Eight just with that bracket. And I do think, to be honest, Marquette's biggest competitor might be Colorado in their side of the bracket. I just don't think a team like Kentucky has the defense to keep with them. Could be wrong there. Maybe they just outpower them again if they get there. I haven't seen much of Texas Tech, to be honest. I think they're solid, but again, I don't know if they're like an Elite Eight type team. But overall, those are my thoughts on the region. Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said about Houston. I mean, I think they're definitely the favorite here, and they're an interesting team because obviously, uh, you know, they've got star power and Jamal Shed, right? Shed, yeah.
Shed.
Who's a great defender and one of the better players in the country, and you got LJ Cryer there. The one thing that worries me about them is just their shooting. Like they're kind of not that dominant of a shooting team. Free throws, they're shooting 69%. Like that's not good, especially for the tournament. 3-point, they're only around like 34.7. Um, so I'm a little worried, which is crazy to say because they're 30-4 and one of the best defensive teams in the country. Um, but I just think, in March, you're going to face teams where they just get hot offensively and you got to catch up. And, one of those teams could be like Nebraska, like we talked about. Tominaga, he has the feel of a guy who just gets going in March and kind of captivates the world. And, he shoots some outlandish shots, but like if he's hot and is hitting those shots, Nebraska is going to be a tough team to beat. Rink Mass is a really good player for them, one of their big men, as well as Josiah Alec has been, a solid piece for them too.
Don't forget
Jamal
the
Murray.
coach's son.
Yes, I know. The Sam Hoiberg, he's not bad. He's actually like another decent, not as good as Drake Tucker, but yeah, Hoiberg's not a bad player. The headband is a little goofy look, but Nebraska, I feel like they have so many. Josiah Alec might be the goofiest looking basketball player I've ever seen. Um, don't really know too much about A&M. I know it's a good matchup. Wisconsin, you know, going into the Big Ten tournament, I was, pretty much out on them. They played really well. AJ Storr is a difference maker. I mean, that guy can really play. And they've got, guys, Chucky Hepburn is an incredible defender. Stephen Crowell can shoot the ball. I mean, they've got all these guys. Klesmit, I mean, killed Northwestern. This guy hit every freaking shot when they played in the tournament. So like they got these guys that I feel like will go off and can go off. Like Crowl, like 46% from three. And, obviously he's not chucking up 10 a game, but like, they got shooters, they got defenders. I can see this team, winning games. James Madison's a really good team, though. I believe they only lost 3 games this season. So, that's not going to be an easy game, I don't think. Duke, like you said, like it's interesting because they had pretty good recruiting class this year. I just don't think I don't know if it's not clicked or if it's just the guys aren't just like I don't know. Ever since that Zion year, like they just haven't had the star talent. I guess they had Paolo, but that team kind of faltered too. I don't know. I'm just not really high on this team, like you said. Depth kind of an issue. They really only got 6 strong players. Then you get to like the Ryan Youngs of the world. To shout out Ryan Young. He's the boy, Northwestern graduate. But they really rely on those 6 guys, and those 6 guys are good. You got Philip Kowski, Jeremy Roach, Jared McCain, all really good players. Um, so can they make a run for sure? I just feel like they haven't clicked fully this year. Texas Tech, NC State, like you said, good game. I like Kentucky. I do. I think this team offensively is really good. Antonio Reeves, great scorer. Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepard. I mean, those are two really high, probably both lottery picks, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, obviously that doesn't necessarily mean everything in college basketball, but that is big that Kentucky's got 5 scores in double figures. They shoot 41% from three. So I think they're going to be a really tough team to beat, especially on that side of the bracket, because I think they'd take Texas Tech or NC State. And then, like you said, Florida, Colorado, I feel like you kind of covered that pretty well. Maybe, kind of a pesky team, the SEC, like we said, got a lot of good offenses. And then Marquette, who I think you're probably higher on than I am. I think they're a great team, very well coached. Shaka Smart is hell of a coach, but I don't know. I'm not fully sold on them. I think Tyler Kolek, how healthy is he? I think is a concern. Cam Jones, obviously a great player. Um, and their big boy, Iguodaro, right? Yeah. He's a great player as well. Like you said, one of the best, if not the best big three in the country. I mean, they're definitely up for debate. Kentucky's got another pretty good big three themselves that I just talked about. So if I had to pick someone in this region, for me, it's between Kentucky and Houston, I think. But there's a lot of kind of potential frisky teams here, I guess, with like a Nebraska. Maybe if Wisconsin plays how they did in the tourney, they're going to be frisky. Same with Duke. If they play up to their potential. I know Duke's now lost 2 in a row, so it's going to be tough for them. James Madison, good, like we mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of good teams, NC State. So I think this is a fun region, probably more fun than the last one we talked about. So it'll be interesting. I think I don't know. It's weird though. For me, I just have trouble visioning like a Houston winning the national championship. Like I don't know if that's just like their program is still relatively like, you know, they're up, but it's like, they just don't have that pedigree of like the blue
The
bloods or
Blue
whatever.
Bloods, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's why. I don't know, but we can move on to the last region if you want.
Yeah, I guess one thing I am thinking about a little bit is like in the NIL era, I would say I'm less worried about the future of college basketball than college
Yeah.
football. Um, but I wonder, and part of it is because it's happening less, but these teams like a Kentucky and a Duke, are these guys who already have, I guess Filipowski not so much, but like, and I don't mean to call him out at all. I really think this guy gets too much hate. But like Jared McCain, like, does
Yeah,
the tournament matter to him as much as it does to Tyler Kolek? Like no. I mean, Tyler Kolek is a guy who his path to being an NBA player is like a Jalen Brunson type, where it's like he's kind of, seen as a maybe he can make it pro ready type guy. Um, but whereas McCain is going to be drafted and like he's going to be young enough to where like he can be bad for most of his rookie contract and still get a sizable second contract. Like
yeah.
again, this is too much of a projection. I'm not trying to say either of these guys individually. I'm just saying like, is there something to be said about the type of teams that a Duke or a Kentucky might have that haven't gone to the as far in the tournament recently since this like new age of college basketball has been going on. I guess that's just something I'm interested to see how that goes. But yeah, moving on to the which one is this? Midwest. This is whose year is it in this bracket? You've got Purdue, they always seem to disappoint. Tennessee always seems to disappoint. Gonzaga has made the Sweet 16 like every year of my life, but they have not won a championship. Um,
Which is crazy with all the
Kansas obviously
talent they've had over the years.
ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous.
Like they had Jalen Suggs, Chet, Corey Kispert, Drew
Rui,
Timme's dog. Um, they've
yeah,
had yeah, crazy.
yeah, so many like good college players and good NBA players. Yeah, wild stuff. Obviously you got Kansas who's super injured. Um, Oregon pretty hot. And Fale Dante, a double machine, super efficient. Uh, you know, could see them, could see him kind of carrying them. Creighton, kind of a different team than they were last year. Lost Ryan Nemhard, who's now on Gonzaga. Um, Following his brother's footsteps, another good Gonzaga player,
Yep.
who's in the NBA, Andrew. But yeah, I like Creighton. I think, Tennessee has, I alluded to it earlier. They've always disappointed, but I think they've always been a certain type of team. And this year they've, to me, taken a lot of the positives that they've always been and added to their biggest negative, which was that they never had a go-to scorer and their offense wasn't good enough. But
Yep.
this dude Dalton Connect is ready. Um, he's I don't know where he went, but I think it was some other,
It
some.
was like northern or no, Damask was Northern Illinois. It was in that like same league though. It was unreal.
So yeah, not the most known school. So this guy's just been like a beast for 4 years, just been waiting for March. Like I feel like this guy's just gonna have a monstrous tournament. They have Vescovy, who I could swear has been in college for like 18 years. Josiah Jordan James. I'm forgetting the name of their big guy, but he's pretty good. Severe. Nope, that's not their. I'm forgetting their point guard's name as well, but he's pretty good.
Zakai Zegler.
Ziegler. That's
Ziegler.
what it is. Um, yeah, I mean, I think they have everything they need. I think they've improved on what's hurt them in the past. I do think I'm going to take them out of this region, but I
Well,
could see a Creighton making it out. I really don't see it with Kansas, to be honest. They're too injured, and I think they were too thin as it was, and they lost one of their guys that they were going to need to play like 35 minutes every game. So, uh, I just don't see it happening this year. I do think Sanford honestly might beat them. Um, McNeese, they had like a sick record, but I don't know if you saw like some of their out of conference schedule. Um, did
did
you
it
see
suck?
this?
No.
I'm gonna read some of these teams out to you because this is absolutely incredible. Um, Hold on one second. Uh,
I like the Cowboys. I feel like they could get a W.
okay, but just wait till you hear some of these schools, okay? So they beat the College of Biblical Studies by 41, Champion Baptist 110-46. I can't even believe this is a real college. Le Tourneau it's LE, like Tourneau, like I guess some French word. And then this is the best one. Mississippi University for women.
What?
Yeah,
They played a women's team?
they have no, they have a men's team. I'm pretty sure, but
I
I don't
love
know.
that. Pad the stats.
Yeah, I love it. But that is just hilarious.
And they're
I
playing
had to bring that
Gonzaga.
up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know much about them as a team, to be honest, but I'm rooting for them because that's sick. Um, and then yeah, I guess Purdue, like, I mean, like to me, I watch them and I just don't think they quite have the athleticism to keep with like some of the really good offensive teams defensively. I think they can score with anyone. They have incredible shooting. Edie is so overpowered at the college level. It's ridiculous. Um and he's gotten so much better. Like he's actually like very good for your typical 7'4" or however tall guy he
Yeah.
is. Um but again, like they, and I do think their bracket is pretty favorable for them to make it to the Elite Eight, but I feel like a Tennessee could be a problem for them. I feel like a Creighton could be a problem for them. I feel like Gonzaga could be a problem for them. I wouldn't be shocked if TCU is a problem for them either. Um, but I don't know. I do feel like everyone is so out on Purdue that maybe they could kind of make a sneaky run this year with Zach Edey his last of 3,000 college seasons. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, St. Peter's is in this bracket as well. That would be awesome if they make another run. I do have Tennessee coming out of this region. Um, I think it feels like they've actually improved on what's been their issues in the past, whereas Purdue just kind of feels due in a way. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Purdue and the region in general.
Yeah. I mean, I think Purdue's gonna come out of the region. I really do. I think they're so freaking good. They I mean, they didn't lose at Mackey all season. I think you got to look at, we talked about it earlier, neutral experience. They played in the Maui Invitational this year and won. I mean, they played some of the best teams in the country. I know it was early on, but they beat Marquette. They
They're also
beat,
like all in this bracket.
yeah, literally. What was it? Gonzaga, was Tennessee there
Tennessee
too? Yeah. So
and
they beat,
Syracuse was there as well.
yeah, there you go. So they beat like all these teams and have done it on a neutral court. So I think they've done it. I think Edie, it's funny how, and Boo for Northwestern gets the same thing. It's like when a guy, and Boo is like old and a fifth year at this point, but like these guys who actually play like all 4 years in college get like so heavily criticized nowadays because it's just like not the standard, which is just so funny. Um, but I think Edie is, foul merchant, whatever. Like the guy is just a stud and he's just hard to stop. I don't think, you look at these teams, like I just don't think anyone's gonna be able to stop him. Hunter Dickinson, I guess, would be an interesting matchup. But like I don't think he's, this all-world defender either. Obviously, the two have, played each other before with Dickinson transferring from Michigan. Um, but I think Braden Smith's leap this year is the reason why they're going to come out. I mean, he's such a good player, facilitator, can score the basketball, good defensively. I mean, he's just a do-it-all kind of guard. Lance Jones, a transfer from either Southern or Northern Illinois, has been really good for them. Evanston native, he's a really good player. You got guys like Fletcher Lawyer, Mason Gillis, who are great shooters. So they just, to me, they had the pieces. I agree with your athleticism take, though. I think that's kind of the one thing they're lacking is that like juice. Like I think they're more a physical tough team. And then you got the skinny kids like a Fletcher Lawyer who kind of just shoot the ball. And I hate that guy. But I hate Purdue, but I think this is a year, kind of like what happened with Virginia. You lose to the 16 seed, and I think they just got so much buildup. And I actually think it's good that they lost in the Big Ten tournament because I think they almost needed that just to like not go in on too many wins in a row. I think that can almost hurt you. And for them, I mean, they won the tournament last year. They won their Big Ten regular season this year and last. Like, it just doesn't matter to them. I don't think at this point. I
Yeah.
saw, John Rothstein tweeted about it. He's like, this doesn't matter. Like, their season starts now. And I agree. Like, I think it's actually works in their favor that they got that loss out of the way and now can just go in fresh, understand what they got to do. And, I think they're more than capable of getting the job done. Gonzaga, like you talked about, a solid team. Kansas, McCullough is out for the tournament. So I think that basically just takes their season away, which, kind of sucks. I was expecting Kansas to be really good this year with, Dickinson transferring and obviously it just feels like they haven't necessarily clicked at times. I mean, they lost by like 20 or 30 to Houston recently. That was crazy. Um,
Yeah. Like to
it was
me, like
Houston, right? Yeah.
yeah, it was to multiple teams, I believe. They've been losing a lot. I think they lost by like 12 or something to Cincinnati. Like to me, like obviously they've dealt with injuries, but like how is Kansas like seventh guy like bad? Like how is
Yeah.
that how what are we doing? Like um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like all around, like, obviously depth is an issue for a lot of these teams, and with the 40-minute game and the winner go home, you're gonna push these guys as much as you can. But, I just like I don't get it. Like, are there not enough good college? I feel like Purdue, for example, like I feel like they like every guy they bring in, I'm like, okay, like you provide like something to this team. Like
Yeah.
most of these guys Kansas brings in, and maybe it's just been like the 4 or 5 games I've seen from them. But like most of these guys, I'm just like what do you provide outside of like the four good players, and now they're missing one. I don't know. I don't know what the line is against Samford, but I'm gonna be interested to see what that is.
Yeah, no, definitely. Creighton, like you said, really good big three. I'm more interested in that bottom end of the bracket though. Texas, Max Abmas, the guy who played at oh God, what's the call? Oral Roberts, they've produced some freaking dogs over the years. They had their other star player who went to, I think it was Texas Tech. He was a beast.
That guy was a monster.
Yeah, but Abmas is, leading scorer for Texas. He's been in the tournament, he's succeeded in the tournament before. That's a guy that to me, Texas, obviously another one of those teams in the Big 12. They've got experience playing the best of the best. I think they're a team that really can do some damage. You look at their schedule this year, they beat Oklahoma, they beat Texas Tech, TCU, they beat Baylor, they beat. So, maybe against that top upper echelon, they kind of came up short, but I think they can get the job done. And you bring up Tennessee, like you said, Dalton Kmet, such a star player. Without Edie, he's probably the national player of the year in college basketball. Crazy story. Just him transferring from like a non-power five. I mean, it's just crazy that you can kind of come in to like the SEC and just score 20, 21 a game. But
He's gonna
props
be
to
a lottery
him.
pick too.
Yeah, he's probably gonna be a lottery
I
pick,
mean,
right?
this draft sucks, but
It's
he
so
is
bad.
supposed to be a
Maybe like
lottery.
the NBA. I mean, I guess last year's was really good with Wemby and I mean, Scoot hasn't necessarily panned out, but Brandon Miller is a great player too. The Thompson twins, but yeah, it's this draft sucks, but he's a great player, can shoot the ball. I guess my only worry with them is like outside of him, I know they've got Ziegler and Adu, but are those guys going to be good enough to get the job done? I guess we'll have to see. And shooting the basketball, they only shoot 34% from three. That is slightly worrying for me. But like you said, with a guy like Kinnett, who's just so good, you think he's probably good. Well, he's definitely good enough to get the job done. So I think it's gonna be interesting. Like I said, for me, not to just pick the number one seed for everything, but like I really do believe that Purdue is gonna come out. I think, Texas or Tennessee, whoever comes out of there is gonna make a run to face off against them. But there's a lot of, you know, really talented teams, a lot of Power Five here. And like you've got Gonzaga, who's just a great program. And yeah, I'm excited for this one. Like you said, the upper seeds too, like McNeese and Samford, Akron, the MAC winner. A
The
lot of teams
Zips.
that you feel like could make some noise here. So we'll see.
Yeah. Um, Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, I think just overall, like at least for me, like with the tournament, like obviously it's incredible. I think, keys to the game, it's just the free throws, I think are so big. I think you need to have guys who can shoot the basketball from three because, it just is such a difference maker. You need someone who can just turn the game around. And I know it sounds stupid, like no shit, you need someone who can shoot threes and who can make free throws, but especially in the tournament, I think just momentum is everything. And those are things that can either kill or really change momentum. And I think sometimes, good defense makes a difference, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but to me, I feel like better offensive teams tend to find more success than the strongest defensive teams come tournament time. Um, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know your general thoughts or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about this a ton, but like you look at a team like Houston and it's like the way I think of them is like in any individual game, they're probably going to be favored at least until the final four. But, um, but what is also likely is that they'll probably have a couple of games at least that will be, within 5 or 10 points. And what if in one of those games they shoot, 10 for 22 from the free throw line and 6 for 30 from three? Like they're going to lose that game. It's
Yeah,
over, like, assuming the team, they're playing is keeping it close. Otherwise, like they can lose that game even if they're playing better outside of the shooting aspect. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely true. I think there's, like, again, to look at Houston, like there's probably an element of like they've just, it's just really hard to win 7 straight games and they just haven't done it. Like, not that they're completely incapable of doing it, but I do think there's absolutely something to be said there, that it's easier to control your destiny by scoring than not giving up points in a way. And to an extent, all of these teams can defend when they really need to. Um, like I think most of these guys have the talent, and when they're really locked in on defense, they're not going to give up wide open shots. It's just going to be who can make the tough shots at the very end of games. And the free throw shooting, of course. Like it feels like with the longer shot clock and a bunch of different factors, it just feels like the foul game is much more common in a college game. And with the 1-and-1s for the first few of the bonus, and then you get to the double bonus and the nerves, and you haven't played on this court before and there's more people watching than you ever thought, and it just shows who's got that dog in them, and for me it's so interesting because as an NBA fan, I'm all about, efficiency and who's actually helping winning basketball, whose team can't survive when the guy is off the court, and what lineups really work well together. And, again, like efficiency, but with college basketball, I'm like, who's the dog?
yeah.
Like I was looking at like Wisconsin because I hadn't really watched them play much, but I was watching them in the conference tournament, and I was looking at like some of their guys' stats, and like I was like, you only shoot like 38% from the field. Like you're like, I thought you were like sick. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But it almost doesn't matter. Like Chucky Hepburn, like he's not a super efficient player, but like I trust that guy in March. Like I don't care. So I guess that's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the absolute most about college basketball, especially the players, but I have been following the conference tournaments, and I've been making bad brackets for years, so hopefully this is the year this starts to turn around. I've at the very least I would say I'm trying new things.
Yeah.
I've always kind of just like picked a team that I feel like their vibe makes sense, and then I just kind of run with them. And that was Illinois for me this year. So against all my worst judgment, I guess I'm picking them to lose, I think, in like the Sweet 16. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for this tournament. Yeah, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, well, real quick, give me your winner if you had to pick right now, because we picked the regions, but overall tournament winner, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Marquette. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I feel it. I don't know why. I just feel it.
All right. I think if I had to go, I'm gonna go UConn. I think they're just too good. I think they got the experience, and I don't know. It just feels like they're locked in and just gonna be so tough to beat. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode of Outside the Arena. Thanks so much for watching. This weekend, stay tuned. We have got mock draft coming in hot. First one of multiple. The draft's what, April 23rd. So, we'll probably do at least 2 or 3 total mock drafts. MLB kicked off today, opening day. So touch on that. Also touch on all the tournament games as well. The Jets have had a big free agency too since we last talked. Tyron Smith, Mike Will. So lots to catch you up on. This was fun to do a little March Madness special. And yeah, stay tuned. We'll be back this weekend. So thanks for watching this episode of Outside the Arena.